get some ice cream.
How about this one? Pistachio, almond, fruit fudge, butterscotch delight.
Ingredients: zinc trisodium aspartate, sorbitol and bisulfate, oxide beta-carotene, lactic acid carabine. Grade A milk emulsified, maltodextrin alkylide, silicon dioxide, lots of sugar. Hey, all right. Calcified synthetic salt, artificial barley malt, glycerin and aspartate, folic acid. That tastes great. Monosodium glutamate, dehydrated calciumate, soybean oil, butter, fat, caramel sensor. I'll eat that. Hooray for sugar, cause we love it. Chocolate chips, we want more of it. Cakes and ice cream, want to shove it down our throats real fast. Here's a candy bar, you tried it? Hey, let's all see what's inside it. Gelatinized triglycerin, phosphate, soybean lecithin, deoxylite, trisilicon, dipped in chocolate. Bring it on! Citrus enzymes, BHT, powdered milk. Sounds good to me. Baking soda, carob gum, carbohydrates. Yummy, yum! Monosodium glutamate, zinc disodium alginate, whole grain flour, yeast, and fat. Time to eat it. I'll do that. We like sweets a lot, so give us all you got, and we'll stuff them in our bodies till they make our insides rot.
You don't have to go to hell. You're in hell. This is hell. This is hell. This is hell.
Because democracy basically means government by the people, of the people, for the people. But the people are retarded.
Then strangled them, and finally dismembered their bodies.
Right.
Then do
Available.
and homelessness and all that.
And now, the voice you've been waiting for.
There is a secret song at the center of the world, and its sound is like razors through flesh. I'm here to turn up the volume.
I'm kind of retarded.
I know we now live in this age of information and connectivity, but it still amazed me how quickly news spread around the globe on Thursday that the President of the United States had most likely just shat his pants. In public, again. But did he really?
Yes, but no. But yes.
Within minutes, people all over the place were posting about this and breaking their neck to put up their YouTube reaction videos. And of course, like a lot of other people, my first thought was,
Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic.
like, wow, is it Shark Week again already? I still have my World War III decorations up. And everybody took the story and just ran with it, because it's not like the idea of him shitting his pants is without precedent. There's a reason why I call him Joey Skidmarks. It's been over 2.5 years since he had that famed meeting with the Pope that suddenly got delayed for like an hour and a half. And when he finally met with the Pope, what do you know, he's wearing a completely different suit.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
And then he had that infamous interview on MSNBC last July where he started squirming around in his seat, and then as soon as the interview was over, he shuffled off stage, and you could almost hear the squish, squish,
It's a very exciting
squish,
day around
squish.
here. We'll have reaction.
If you saw a 2-year-old doing this, you would say, hey, are you shitting? Oh, but this is the president, so it couldn't possibly be that. But everybody kept floating around the same 12-second clip, which was a little bit deceptive because most of them implied that there wasn't even a chair around and he's definitely pooping, and right after this he was rushed away. But it's not true. There are chairs behind them, and right after the clip ends, Macron and those other 2 dudes sit down with him. But again, this is a move that if you saw your 2-year-old making, you'd say, hey, Are you shitting right now? And then when they did get up, he did sort of get whisked away kind of quickly. I mean, he shook like 2 veterans' hands on his way out, and then Macron went running around shaking everybody's hand he could. So while a lot of the way that it was reported on and portrayed was a little bit deceptive, yeah, I still think he crapped his pants. But cut him some slack. He had had a big week. The day before, he flew all the way across the Atlantic, and then took the rest of the day off to recuperate.
Fox News alert: the White House announcing President Biden will not meet with the media, almost immediately after landing south of Paris this morning.
The president is in France to commemorate the 80th anniversary of D-Day.
And the day before that, he announced he was taking executive action on the border.
Today, I'm joined by a bipartisan group of governors, members of Congress, mayors, law enforcement officials, most of whom live and work along the southern border. They know the border is not a political issue to be weaponized. The responsibility we have to share to do something about it. They don't have time for the games played in Washington, and neither do the American people. So today, I'm moving past Republican obstruction and using the executive authorities available to me as president to do what I can on my own to address the border. Frankly, I would have preferred to address this issue through a bipartisan legislation because that's the only way to actually get the kind of system we have now that's broken, fixed, to hire more Border Patrol agents, more asylum officers, more judges. But Republicans have left me no choice.
Passing parts of the bill that he claimed that the Republicans refused to pass because they don't want to do anything about the border is funny because he was also claiming that he didn't have the power to do any of these things and he needed Congress to act. And that was after 3 years of saying, we don't have any problem with the border. Even though he made giggles the border czar to deal with the border crisis that doesn't exist, and then announced that President Harris had fixed the problem.
Well, President Harris led this effort to make things better in the countries from which they are leaving. And thanks to her leadership, she's been able to generate more than $3.2 billion from the private sector to create jobs and opportunities in El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. Tell people stay in their own countries, home countries, where it'll be safer and they have some opportunities.
Does everybody remember all of that?
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
So he went ahead and he instituted the ineffective and mostly symbolic parts of the border bill. The one part he really couldn't pass on his own was how the bill had in it to basically sign over any kind of congressional oversight to a single court in D.C. that nobody would be able to overrule. That was really the only part of the bill they cared about. Everything else was just theatrics. And this came a day after Mexico elected their first woman president, Claudia Sheinbaum. Yeah, that's exactly what you'd expect the Mexican president to be named. And I'll be the first to admit I really don't know shit about this lady. But what caught my attention was that 37 other people that she was running against were assassinated.
Did you hear what I said? Oh my God. 37!
Wow. What a number.
I mean, that's gotta be a record, right? For most candidates to be assassinated in a single political race, 37 seems like a lot. And while I'm not sure yet how this fits into the grand scheme of things, I can't help but think that the timing of this, being a day before Biden decides something has to be done and action has to be taken on the border, is somehow connected. Of course, none of the network cable news was talking about any of this shit. They were too busy showcasing the latest shitty Star Wars movie and discussing the great shopping cart debate over whether or not you should return carts to the little stall.
I don't give a fuck.
Fair enough.
Don't give a fuck.
They did briefly mention Fauci going to testify on Capitol Hill, but only in the context of him getting emotional over death threats that he and his family had received.
Don't give a fuck.
Oh, they sure didn't want to talk about the guy sitting behind Fauci. I don't know who this is, but I would love to buy him a beer.
Protective services essentially all the time. It is very troublesome to me. It is much more troublesome.
They also didn't mention the fact that he openly admitted that all that social distancing, staying 6 feet apart and all that shit was completely just made up. They shoved it down everybody's throats as a mandate, called it science, and in the end, he just pulled it out of his ass. And if we had any kind of functional justice system that wasn't completely corrupt to the core, he would be sitting in a room with very bright lights, getting interrogated about who his co-conspirators were and who knew what when. But instead, we have a Justice Department run by this sniveling little shitbag, who also came to testify on Capitol Hill last week.
Attorney General, you've told us that it's a dangerous conspiracy theory to allege that the Department of Justice is communicating with these state and local prosecutions against Trump. You can clear it all up for us right now. Will the Department of Justice provide to the committee all documents, all correspondence between the department and Alvin Bragg's office and Fonnie Willis's office and Letitia James's office.
The offices you're referring to are independent offices of state.
I get that. I get that. The question is whether or not you will provide all of your documents and correspondence. That's the question. I don't need a history lesson.
Well, I'm going to say again, we do not control those offices. They make their own decisions.
The question is whether you communicate with them, not whether you control them. Do you communicate with them, and will you provide those communications?
If you make a request, we'll refer it to our Office of Legislative Affairs.
But see, here's the thing. You come in here and you lodge this attack that it's a conspiracy theory that there is coordinated lawfare against Trump. And then when we say, fine, just give us the documents, give us the correspondence, and then if it's a conspiracy theory, that will be evident. But when you say, well, we'll take your request, and then we'll sort of work it through the DOJ's accommodation process, then you're actually advancing the very dangerous conspiracy theory that you're concerned about.
This is what he and a lot of other people do. Every time they're called before the House or the Senate, they give these long, rambling, wordy non-answers, and that way they can eat up the person's allotted time without actually answering a fucking thing. Because it really is a simple question. You say that everything is above board and you're not at all directing these prosecutions against Trump, so would you be willing to turn over any communications? He can't give a straight answer because it would be no. When Congress tried to subpoena the tapes of the interviews, when the special prosecutor was asking Biden about all those classified documents that were found in his garage that as vice president he didn't have legal authority to be keeping, unlike a president, well, Merrick Garland just deemed them to be illegitimate. Meanwhile, the same department that he heads is trying to put Steve Bannon in jail for failure to comply with a congressional subpoena.
He's an asshole.
So for all of Trump's failings and shortcomings during his first term, this is one of the things I'll be eternally grateful for, is that by winning, he kept this treacherous little scumbag off the Supreme Court.
Gotta enjoy the little things.
Or like this recent piece that Time did interviewing Biden, begrudgingly admitting that, yeah, he is fucking losing it. And they even brought this guy on CNN so that he could tap dance around the obvious and observable circumstances of his decline.
President Biden brushing off any concerns about his age. How did he seem to you?
I mean, he appears very much as he appears on TV. He is older than when he started in office. It's visible if you just look side by side on the tape. The transcript is a good place for people to go to assess that. You know, he was, we describe it in the piece as well. There's some sort of color description of how he appeared in there.
So you've got some people starting to hint at, okay, maybe there is a bit of a problem, whilst others are in complete denial still.
I can tell you that he is sharper than ever. And again, I want to go back and really underscore the fact that his record is very strong.
How much should a candidate's cognitive function factor into that decision when someone votes?
I don't even know what that question means.
Liar whore, and you know it.
I mean,
when they vote, should they be thinking about which candidate, how they're functioning cognitively?
Sure, absolutely. They should.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Adrienne Elrod, Senior Biden campaign spokesperson, thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
All right, as we head to break.
She was not happy that somebody in the press was even pretending to have a little bit of integrity. Because it's getting impossible for people to keep completely ignoring. Other than the did he or didn't he shit his pants, there was plenty of other times where Biden seemed like a lost and confused child. Like this one. You see the veterans behind him saluting the flag, and they're like, what the fuck is he doing? So they go, okay, let's turn around and face the wrong way as well. And then he gave a surprisingly halfway coherent speech, where it would have been uncouth to turn it into a political thing attacking your opponent, so he didn't actually mention Trump by name, but even all the mainstream news had to admit, yeah, it was obvious what the fuck he was talking about. And he warned of the dangers posed by authoritarian and isolationist impulse, because not starting World War III, why that would be isolationists and it's un-American. And then he has a little sit-down meeting with Zelensky, where he apologizes about the Congress holding up their latest relief package. Yeah, the president/dictator, whose term ended but he suspended elections, and is currently in command of the last actual factual Nazi battalion in the world. Unless you think all of the swastikas and Black Sun logos and all the fucking Sig Heiling is just them trolling the world. And this is the guy that you bring to France to commemorate the 80th anniversary of D-Day?
Oh, the irony! It's too much!
And they sure didn't waste any time once they got permission to use US missiles inside of Russia. And what was Putin's response to this? I gotta admit, I really didn't see this coming, and it's actually quite brilliant in its simplicity. He basically said, well, since you guys are saying it's no big deal for you to arm our enemies to attack us, maybe we could just arm some of your enemies. Because like you said, that's no big deal, right? See, and that's why I don't buy into all this talk of Russia's just gonna start using nukes. They've actually been really restrained. They could have gone in and obliterated Ukraine, but they didn't. They're warning of the threat of the escalation to nuclear war because they see where this mission creep is going. But they also see that the West is trying to provoke them into making the first move. And I think they also realize that if they don't make that move, it'll get made for them, at which point they'll be forced to push that button. And it's seeming more and more like that's exactly where this is headed. Slancha.
All I have in this world is my thoughts and my word, and I don't break them for no one. You understand?
So say good night to the bad guy. 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 Come on. Come on. stupid fuck. Look at you now.